So I was finishing up some work here for Newswave tomorrow morning, and I pop over to Twitter, see what's going on, and what do I see over on that little trending sidebar but Switch Pro? And I was like, Switch Pro is back, huh? We're going over this again before the OLED model even comes out. All right, let's see what's going on. Well, it turns out Takashi Mochizuki put out a new report on Bloomberg around 4K games being developed for a console that doesn't actually exist. And I figured we'd take a look at that here today because Nintendo is not very happy and they decided to respond. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So let's head over here to the article that Mochizuki put up. This isn't going to make it in Newswave tomorrow, obviously. It came out a little later on, but I wanted to go over it a bit here just because I kind of think this story is going to continue to evolve here, and I'll explain why that is. But we can see at the top here, developers are making games for a Nintendo 4K console that doesn't exist. At least 11 companies. And what's interesting about this is Takashi decided to name one of the developers, that being Zynga. Now, it goes on to say, employees at 11 game companies said their teams were in possession of Nintendo's 4K development kit for the Switch. The companies span the globe, ranging from large publishers to small studios, and include at least one that has never made a console game before, that being Zynga. That's according to employees who asked not to be identified because they weren't authorized to discuss their projects publicly. I feel like you also shouldn't identify the studio because, well, now Nintendo knows where to look. I mean, you could say, okay, there's 11 studios out there they went to, or 11 different companies, but I mean, how many of these development kits have gone out, right? I mean, Nintendo knows if they have gone out, as is being detailed here by Bloomberg. But the moment you start naming them, I assume Nintendo's going to break into an investigation and look into Zynga. Zynga is making Star Wars Hunters for the Switch. That's supposed to be like that free-to-play arena-style shooter. It's going to be on mobile devices as well. So it is intertwined with the Star Wars IP. I don't know. Maybe Zynga feels very safe because of that. And they just said, yeah, go ahead and let everyone know. Let the world know that we're, for some reason, developing this game with 4K in mind for a Switch that doesn't actually exist right now with this brand new development kit we just got in. Again, it seems strange that you would say, yeah, go ahead and just throw Zynga's name out there. Don't keep us anonymous, because that's usually the first thing you ask for when you start laying this kind of information out there. It should be behind an NDA. Anyway, Bloomberg goes on to say a system capable of handling 4K games isn't expected to be released until late next year at the earliest. People familiar with the plan said that leaves Nintendo at a technical disadvantage to rivals whose shares have soared this year, while Nintendo's have lost 20%. Now, I know we've heard this a lot, like every year since the Switch came out, and yeah, Bloomberg's been talking about this thing it's been 2 or 3 years at least now. It seems like every time we're heading into the holiday, there are stories and articles being written about how Nintendo is gearing up to release a Switch Pro revision. My thing with that, though, is I kind of feel like we're running out of time here. I mean, consider that the end of next year going into 2023, let's say it doesn't even come out in 2022, we're talking about going into 6 years of the Switch. To me, that might be a little late to release a more powerful version of the Switch into its life, considering it might be worth then to just kind of ride it out and get to a next generation Switch that is fully backwards compatible. That to me would make more sense. Really, if you were going to do a revision, you would kind of do what Sony did with the PS4 Pro. We had the PS4 in 2013, and then 2016, we had the PS4 Pro, 3 years later. If that were the case here with the Switch, we'd already have this Switch Pro. Instead, we got a Switch Lite. Now, this part's pretty important. They say Nintendo responded to a list of questions by saying Bloomberg's reporting is inaccurate and declined to specify which parts of the information it was referring to. And the reason I say it's important is because essentially it gave Nintendo a heads up that Bloomberg was writing this article. Like, they're saying, hey, we went to all these different developers, including Zynga, but I'm sure they went ahead and just named them. Why not? And we're going to post this article, this report. Investors are going to see this. Do you have any comments? And Nintendo apparently just said, yeah, it's inaccurate. I'm not going to tell you which parts, but yeah, that's inaccurate. So what do we get? Well, Nintendo, through their corporate, their investor relations account on Twitter, put out a message, which we can see here. A news report on September 30th, 2021 falsely claims that Nintendo is supplying tools to drive game development for a Nintendo Switch with 4K support to ensure correct understanding among our investors and customers. We want to clarify that this report is not true. And then they say, we also want to restate that as we announced in July, we have no plans for any new model other than Nintendo Switch OLED model, which will launch on October 8th, 2021. So this report does not help Nintendo in any way. If you think about it, Nintendo doesn't want you thinking, oh, well, there's a Switch Pro coming out potentially at the end of next year. I mean, why would I buy this OLED then for $350 if I can wait for this so-called 4K Switch to come out? Nintendo is trying to get ahead of this with, a tweet that appears to be pre-planned. Like, I don't know if this was scheduled or something, or they just were waiting for the Bloomberg article to go up, and they're like, oh yeah, go ahead and just put that out there now, because they also have to keep in mind that investors are going to see this Bloomberg report. It's not just going to be like you or me or people who are like looking to buy the OLED or really into gaming. This is like their official Nintendo corporate Twitter account that, for the most part, speaks directly to people investing in the company. And as much as I see people online into gaming who are like, Bloomberg's lost all credibility with this stuff, you have to understand these investors are looking at Bloomberg as a whole, and they see this pop up and they're like, well, I mean, Bloomberg's pretty tuned in with a lot of this business stuff. Maybe I should keep an eye on this with Nintendo and that 4K Switch, and will this affect OLED sales because it's getting out there early that they're working on an even better model? So Nintendo is essentially trying to come out and just get ahead of this whole thing to try to calm things down when it comes to, looking past this Switch OLED that clearly they want to be able to sell this holiday. They go on to talk a bit more about the timetable for when the dev kits went out to different studios. They say by the time Nintendo showed off the new console in July, the company had already handed out the 4K kits to outside developers and asked them to design software to support the higher resolution. Development kit, which is used to test unfinished games, is a standard instrument in the game-making process. They do go on further to talk about that Switch development kit that had popped up before with extra memory, and I know we saw Digital Foundry kind of speculate a bit more on that, and it appeared that nothing had really changed with it outside of just more memory, but Bloomberg goes on to claim that the new one does 4K. So I'm looking at this, and like I said before, Bloomberg, they do have a bit of a credibility issue right now when it comes to the gaming side of things with something like this Switch Pro. It's something that they've been chasing this for a while now, and really they just want Nintendo to show up eventually and say, hey, here's a Switch with 4K, so they can fall back on and say, look, we had all the correct info. Right now, the only correct info that I've seen from them was that it was going to have this OLED screen, and that kind of makes sense, mostly because I feel like their main source was in manufacturing, and if a bunch of OLED screens are coming through from Samsung and they have Nintendo's name on it, it's pretty easy to put two and two together there. Unless Nintendo's making a phone randomly, it's probably for some new Switch model. It's more this 4K stuff that has really been a struggle for Bloomberg to really nail down here, and that really comes down to apparently Nintendo having a hard time nailing this down as well, because it is pointed to by Bloomberg with the chip shortage being a serious issue, even pointing out that certain components are spoken for all the way up until 2025, things that would be key in building out a 4K system for Nintendo, which is the main problem here. Bloomberg appears to be trying to guess at when some new system from Nintendo would come out that would support 4K, while Nintendo themselves don't know when a system that would support 4K would come out. So it appears that developers could be working on 4K titles, but keep in mind, these 4K improvements for these games could just be working towards a next generation Switch with backwards compatibility years from now. Maybe Nintendo is looking at the chip shortage and is like, you know what, it's really going to be difficult for us to make this revision work in the next year or two. Maybe we'll push it out 3 to 4 years, and we really will ride the current Switch hardware, that being that X1, out until 2024 even, before we actually introduce a brand new, more powerful Switch and just make that jump into next gen. But let me know what you guys think about this one, because Bloomberg, Bloomberg, like I said, is 50-50 for a lot of people now. And the reason I think this story can continue to build from here is because Bloomberg is continuing to drop hints that there are a ton of developers right now working on 4K Switch games. And I noticed that a lot of different outlets were talking about this, retweeting it, mentioning it. And I kind of think there could be some follow-ups from places like Eurogamer, The Verge, any of these other places that could try to get in contact with developers they think may have access to something like this 4K dev kit that's being claimed by Bloomberg. And then we could see other articles and reports popping up, either confirming or even denying this. So we'll see what happens, like I said, going forward here. But that's right, even before the Switch OLED is out, even before we're into 2022, the Switch Pro just won't leave us. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.